Hi, my name is Archie Sebastian Regan, and I was director of my film Tomorrow You. My main job was to ensure that all the creative decisions were very clearly laid out to all the cast members, my group, and our actors, who are also all part of our group. Um, I had to make sure that all the best places to film were selected, and that all the angles and everything looked exactly how I wanted it to look for the final production of the film. So I helped oversee each person and made sure that they were doing it how I wanted them to do it. Um, with the actors, Amir, even Emily, even Ali, just telling them direction of how I want to see them and sort of emotions they're going to invoke and show. And also even then Hillman on the camera, I was able to just leave him to do his own thing, but I was sort of showing him the movement and how I wanted it to be filmed so that it would look a certain way in the final product. There were a few challenges with the film. One that comes to mind was the fact that our final scene was going to be at a bridge, but there's not many that we could really think of in the area where we could sort of film around it and potentially under it or whatever. So I thought it would be easier for us to go and film in the car park for our final scene, because we could still get a high enough floor to have the same effect. And it actually made it probably a bit easier because you wouldn't be in public as much, you're sort of hidden away. Another thing that was a bit of a challenge was probably sound when it came to recording in the smaller rooms, because in each of the dorm room scenes are in quite a confined space. I mean, my room's not that big, and the cameraman Hillman was to move around with Amir as he was going, which meant that obviously Jack couldn't stand in the room with a boom bar and not being shot for any of it, because you're going all the way around in tight spaces where two people couldn't pass at once. So that was a bit of a challenge. For that, we left the mic in the room and hope for the best, as well as obviously having the camera mic as backup. So it's sort of able to overcome that, but that was something that if I could have found a better way to deal with that, which would probably be to have a separate mic on the actual camera, another one, which would muffle the sounds around it. That would have been good. Another challenge I suppose would be the couple weeks where Amir wasn't able to come, which no fault of his own, but then it meant that obviously we couldn't film that week. But in order to still get something out of the week rather than it being a waste, I decided we would film a little title sequence, which I've actually used in the film. So I kind of filled that slot. So I think that was a good little bit of problem solving that week. Probably the biggest challenge was the fact that when I decided I wanted to direct Hillman's script, I wanted to change the ending, which then meant throughout the whole filming process we had to try and figure out how to link the new ending throughout the film, which meant that we met up as a group. I said today we'll all meet up and we can go through the whole script together rather than individually doing it. We can go through it together, talk through it, get ideas from each other, which can help these smaller filler scenes, which were important, still relate to the new ending. Because another thing I noticed with Hillman's script at first was some of them it almost seemed like the stalker had supernatural powers, and so then when you're looking at all the scenes, there were these scenes that they ended up giving more to the film and filling it out, giving more context, but they just wouldn't work because it's not a supernatural film. These notes aren't literally appearing out of thin air. They're placed by whoever it is. So that challenge was us all getting together, going through it, thinking of how we can change those notes, what they said, trying to figure out what we should write on the notes so that it would work for the film and actually link to the end. So that was a really productive day. Even though we didn't do any filming that day, we managed to sort of go for the script, and then I edited it, the actual script. I'd say the biggest critique for the film for me would probably be how the sound came out, and I think that that does just come down to it being quite a difficult thing to not have any background noise. Because I mean, obviously we're filming on the uni campus, so there's scenes where like there's loads of background, and you've got the airplanes going overhead. So like I remember the scene where we filmed on the bench. I listened back to the sound from the boom bar, and like you could just hear the planes, and it was really difficult. Um, and yeah, then like when we were in the library, there's so much chatter behind. It's really hard to like narrow that. Yeah, and yeah, like I said, with the dorm rooms, like you couldn't really have like a boombar going about inside them. So like, I mean, I think we still managed to get like decent sound throughout the film, but it's not necessarily as consistent throughout each scene as I'd like it to be. Like I know there's certain scenes where we maybe like had to add something to sort of like cover the sound that was happening. Um, so yeah, like it would have been better if we could manage to get perfect sound, but it's a very difficult thing to do when you got a one man operation on it. I think then another critique I would have of the film, which I suppose would be down to me, is the fact that I feel like there's not enough notes. And so like you do have like a very clear like beginning, middle, and end, and like the middle. If I could have just filled that out a bit more with just more random notes and like him actually reaching for the note, rather than it sort of just appearing, I think that would have made it just way better and like way more. I just would have like had a better continuity towards the end, rather than there being a bit of a jump, which I suppose does take place a little bit. But yeah, I think it would have been better if there was more notes. But I don't know whether we would have run out of time there. Maybe I could have been quicker paced in the middle, with him just like getting note after note after note. But you can only do so much. This is my favourite bit of that film. It's not just a specific 15 seconds, but more like the whole montage of the ending. But I remember saying to Hillman that like with this, like I want it to seem like there's a lot of movement. So I was saying to him like if you literally just like move around his face and like spin around him and stuff, like we can edit that so that it like matches the scenes in the dorm room. And like I was saying to Amir, like be like proper up in your face, because he was up in his face in the dorm room as well. And I felt like the transitions between those two scenes work really really nicely, because I know there's times where he's in the dorm room and then it goes to his face, and then and then in the car park he's like that with his face as well. And so I just think they just linked really nicely. And like that's sort of something that like that's spinning like actual like in camera transitions. Sort of something I've been wanting to like actually try for a while, and I feel like it worked pretty well. I know it could have been better maybe like if you just like obviously if you're like at an exact point and you're going around at the same speed. But I just think in terms of the like the motion you get in the end scene when you're cutting between the two places, and there's just constant movement with the camera, I felt like it really brought like a nice tension to the end, and I thought it was really fitting to the film. So that is like the bit that I'm most proud of with the film, and I think it came out pretty well like how I wanted it to look when I told Hillman to film it that way. So yeah. So for me, like my number one soft skill, technical skill would be like really good teamwork and communication, because I felt like our group just like really like glued well nicely, and like it was a really like comfortable process because everyone was up for it and everyone was present, and like it was just a lot of good communication between us. I know like Abby was messaging me a lot throughout it, being a good producer, because she just had it really clear, like trying to get out of us like when are we going to film, when are we going to do that, what's our next scene and stuff like that, which allowed the whole thing to just go a bit smoother. And like I mean, it is probably the most important thing really for like a production. So definitely in my next production, I would want to just like put an emphasis on like actual good communication between everyone and like a good working environment, because that made the difference 100%. It made it a lot easier for me because I felt comfortable telling people what to do. Whereas like if I felt like people weren't enjoying it or like didn't want to be there, Either like I don't know, but like maybe I'd get more shy and not feel like I want to tell them what to do more. Maybe I would get annoyed, and obviously that would be bad for production. So that's definitely probably like my favourite thing about working in this production. What I would do differently in pre-production next time would be to make sure that the changes for the script are like done before any filming, because like I said, I had to like stop filming the 1 week and say that like we all had to like come together and sort of get over how we're going to change each of the notes that didn't really fit, or the scenes that didn't really fit to the new ending. So in the pre-production, if I had that, then it would have solved my thing of like there not being enough notes in the middle to like lead to the end, because I would have seen that. Whereas because we made that change more during the filming, kind of had to run with what we had. And I was worried at the time whether we would have enough in the middle. I think it ended up all right, but yeah, like I said, I would have probably preferred a few more. And if we had done that in pre-production, that would have been more clear.